The first thing you need to know about my wife Melissa is that she has this smirk. Not a smile, not a grin, a smirk. The kind that says she knows something you don't, and she's enjoying every second of your ignorance. I saw that smirk for the first time in 8 years on a Tuesday night in October, and it changed everything. I was sitting in our living room, laptop balanced on my knees, debugging code for a client's security system. The familiar glow of my screen was the only light in the room, except for the hallway brightness spilling in from upstairs. Melissa was getting ready for what she called Girls' Night. Her second one this week, which was unusual even for her. "You're going out again?" I asked, not looking up from my screen. The question came out more tired than accusatory, which probably said everything about where our marriage had drifted. "Don't start, Jack." Her voice carried that edge I'd been hearing more often lately. Emily and I made plans weeks ago. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Emily, her best friend since college, a nurse at the local hospital who had always been straight with me. Unlike some of Melissa's other friends, Emily never made me feel like an outsider at gatherings. She had this way of including everyone in conversations, asking about my work, remembering details about projects I'd mentioned months earlier. "I wasn't starting anything," I said, finally looking up. "I just thought maybe we could—" The words died in my throat. Melissa stood in the doorway wearing a black dress that I'd never seen before. It wasn't the kind of outfit you wore to grab drinks with a girlfriend. This was the kind of dress you wore when you wanted to be noticed, when you wanted to turn heads, when you wanted someone specific to remember exactly how you looked. "Could what?" she asked, and there it was, the smirk. Like she was daring me to call her out, daring me to ask the questions that were suddenly screaming in my head. "Nothing," I said, but something cold was spreading in my chest. "Have fun with Emily." "Oh, I'm not going with Emily tonight." The smirk widened. "Change of plans, I'm meeting someone else." The way she said it, the way she was looking at me, like she was waiting for a reaction, hoping for one, made my stomach drop. 8 years of marriage, and I'd never seen this expression on her face. This wasn't my wife being mysterious or playful. This was someone I didn't recognize. "Who?" The question slipped out before I could stop it. "Does it matter?" She grabbed her purse from the hall table, checked her reflection in the mirror one more time. "You'll just sit here with your computer anyway." "Melissa, what's going on?" She turned back to me, and for a second I thought I saw something flicker across her face. Guilt, maybe, or regret. But then the smirk returned, harder this time. "You really want to know?" she asked. "Fine. I'm going out with Trevor, my ex, the one you've always been so worried about." Trevor Morrison. The name hit me like a physical blow. Her ex-boyfriend from before we met, the one she'd dated for 3 years, the one she'd claimed was ancient history when I'd asked about him early in our relationship. The successful restaurant owner who drove a BMW and lived in the expensive part of town. The one who'd tried to friend her on Facebook 2 years ago, causing our first real fight. "Are you serious right now?" "Very serious." She was enjoying this, I realized. The shock on my face, the way I was struggling to process what she'd just said. "He called last week. We've been talking." "Talking." I set the laptop aside and stood up. "What kind of talking?" "The kind where we realized we made a mistake letting each other go." She said it so casually, like she was discussing the weather. "The kind where we figured out what we really want." The room felt like it was tilting. 8 years of marriage, a mortgage, shared friends, shared everything. And she was standing there telling me she'd been having some kind of emotional affair with her ex-boyfriend like it was nothing. "So what are you saying, Melissa? Are you saying you want a divorce?" "I'm saying I want to be happy." She opened the front door, cool October air rushing in. "I'm saying I'm tired of pretending this is working when we both know it isn't." "We both know?" My voice was getting louder. "When did we both decide that? When did we have that conversation?" "We don't need to have conversations, Jack. Some things are obvious." She stepped onto the porch, then turned back. "Don't wait up." The door closed with a soft click that somehow sounded louder than if she'd slammed it. I stood there in the sudden silence, staring at the closed door, trying to understand what had just happened. My wife, the woman I'd been married to for 8 years, the woman I'd bought this house with, the woman I'd been planning to start a family with, had just walked out to go on a date with her ex-boyfriend, and she'd smiled while she did it. I picked up my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found Emily's number. If Melissa was lying about girls' night, Emily would know. Emily would tell me the truth. The phone rang twice before she answered. "Hey, Jack, what's up?" "Emily, hi. Quick question. Did you and Melissa have plans tonight? There was a pause. Plans? No. Why? She told you we were hanging out? The cold feeling in my chest spread. Yeah, she did. But then she said plans changed. Changed how? Emily's voice had that careful tone people use when they're trying not to step in something messy. She said she was going out with Trevor Morrison instead. Trevor? Her ex, Trevor? Another pause, longer this time. Jack, I'm going to ask you something, and I want you to know I'm only asking because I care about both of you. How long has this been going on? How long has what been going on? The problems, the distance, because from where I'm sitting, Melissa's been different lately, distracted, and not in a good way. I sank back onto the couch. I don't know, a few months maybe? I thought it was just work stress, or maybe we were in a rut. Normal marriage stuff. Normal marriage stuff doesn't usually involve calling up ex-boyfriends. So you think she's... I couldn't finish the sentence. I think you need to have a serious conversation with your wife, Emily said gently. And I think you need to figure out what you want to do if she's not interested in having that conversation. After I hung up, I sat in the dark living room for a long time, thinking about that smirk. About the way Melissa had looked at me like she was holding all the cards, and I was just figuring out we were playing a game. About the fact that she'd gotten dressed up like she was going on a first date, not grabbing drinks with an old friend. About the fact that she'd wanted me to know. She could have lied, could have stuck with the Emily story, could have snuck around behind my back. But she'd told me the truth with that smirk on her face, like she wanted to see how I'd react, like she was testing me. Well, I thought, staring at my phone, two can play that game. I stared at Emily's number on my phone screen for about 10 minutes before I got the nerve to call her back. The house felt different now that Melissa was gone. Not empty exactly, but charged with possibility, like the air before a storm. Emily, it's Jack again. I know this is weird, but I have a question for you. Shoot! I took a deep breath. Do you want to go out with me? The silence stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. Then Emily laughed. Not the polite laugh you give when someone tells a bad joke, but a real laugh, surprised and delighted. Are you asking me on a date, Jack Morrison? I guess I am. The words felt strange in my mouth, but also right somehow. I mean, if my wife can go out with her ex-boyfriend, I figure I can go out with someone too. Someone meaning me specifically, or just someone in general? You specifically. And as I said it, I realized it was true. Not just because Emily was available and I was hurt, but because I'd always liked her. She was smart and funny and real in a way that Melissa hadn't been for a long time. I've always liked you, Emily, even when I probably shouldn't have. Even when you shouldn't have? Even when I was married to your best friend. Another pause. Jack, are you sure about this? Because once we cross this line... I'm sure. I was surprised by how sure I sounded. Melissa made her choice tonight. Now I'm making mine. Okay then. I could hear the smile in her voice. Pick me up in an hour. I hung up and immediately felt a mix of exhilaration and terror. What was I doing? Was I really going to go on a date with my wife's best friend while my wife was out with her ex? Yes. Yes, I was. I showered, shaved, and put on the blue button-down that Melissa always said made my eyes look good. Then I realized I was getting dressed up for another woman using advice from my wife, and had to laugh at the absurdity of it all. Emily lived in a small apartment complex about 15 minutes away. When I knocked on her door, she opened it wearing jeans and a green sweater that brought out her eyes. She looked beautiful, but more than that, she looked happy to see me. So, she said, grabbing her jacket, where are we going on this revenge date? Revenge date? Come on, Jack. Let's call it what it is. She locked her door and turned to face me. Your wife is out with her ex, so you're out with her best friend. It's textbook revenge dating. Is that what this is? She studied my face for a moment. I don't know, is it? The honest answer was complicated. Yes, I was hurt and angry and wanted to prove something to Melissa. But also, standing there looking at Emily, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Excited to spend time with someone, curious about what they might say, hopeful about where the evening might lead. Maybe it started as revenge, I said finally, but I don't think that's what it is now. Good answer. She smiled and took my arm. Now let's go somewhere nice. I want to see what all the fuss is about. What fuss? The fuss about dating Jack Morrison. Melissa always said you were too good for her. I'm starting to think she might have been right. We went to Romano's, a small Italian place downtown that I'd always wanted to try, but Melissa had always dismissed as too quiet. It was perfect. Dim lighting, good wine, and the kind of atmosphere that encouraged long conversations. "So tell me something," Emily said after we'd ordered. "When did you know things were going wrong?" "With Melissa?" I thought about it. "Honestly, I think I've been pretending things were okay for so long that I forgot what okay actually felt like. But if I'm being really honest, probably 6 months ago, she started working late more often, going out more, being on her phone constantly, all the classic signs that I just kept making excuses for." "What kind of excuses?" "Work stress, marriage ruts, the 7-year itch, even though we've been married 8 years. I laughed, but it came out bitter. I kept thinking if I just gave her space, if I just didn't rock the boat, things would get better on their own. "And how did that work out for you?" "Well, she's on a date with her ex-boyfriend, so not great." Emily reached across the table and touched my hand. "I'm sorry, Jack. I really am. You deserve better than this." "Do I?" The question surprised me. I mean, maybe I got comfortable. Maybe I stopped trying. Maybe she's right to. "Stop." Emily's voice was firm. "Don't do that. Don't make her choices your fault. Yes, marriages take work from both people, but having an affair, emotional or otherwise, isn't the solution to marriage problems. Talking is, counseling is, being honest about what you need is, sneaking around with your ex-boyfriend is not." "Is that what she's doing? Having an affair?" "Jack, she told you she's been talking to her ex-boyfriend and that they realized they made a mistake letting each other go. Then she got dressed up like she was going to prom and went out with him. What would you call it?" Put like that, it was pretty obvious. My wife was having an affair. Maybe not a physical one yet, but definitely an emotional one. And she'd thrown it in my face like she wanted me to know. "The weird thing is," I said, "she seemed happy about it, like she wanted me to be upset. Maybe she did? Why would she want that?" Emily was quiet for a moment, turning her wine glass in her hands. "Can I tell you something, and you have to promise not to get mad at me for not saying anything before?" My stomach dropped. "Okay." "Melissa's been different for months. Not just distracted, different. She's been complaining about you, about your marriage, about feeling trapped. And I kept telling her that all marriages go through rough patches, that she should talk to you, maybe suggest counseling. But she didn't want to hear it. What did she want to hear? That she deserved better, that she was too young to settle, that she should follow her heart." Emily looked up at me. "I think she's been looking for an excuse to blow up your marriage for a while now. Trevor calling was just the excuse she was waiting for." The words hit me like a physical blow. "So this whole thing, tonight, the way she told me, it was all planned?" "I think so. I think she wanted you to know, wanted you to react, wanted to be able to say you drove her away by being jealous and controlling." "But I didn't react. I mean, I was upset, but I didn't try to stop her or make a scene or anything." Emily smiled. "No, you didn't. Instead, you called me and asked me out, which, by the way, was probably the last thing she expected." "Good." The word came out harder than I'd intended. Let her be surprised for once. We talked for 3 hours. About everything. Work, books, movies, travel, dreams we'd given up on, and dreams we were still chasing. Emily was easy to talk to in a way that Melissa hadn't been for years. She listened, really listened, and asked follow-up questions and remembered details. She laughed at my jokes and called me out when I was being too hard on myself. By the time we left the restaurant, I felt like I'd been holding my breath for months and could finally exhale. "This was really nice," Emily said as we walked to my car. "Surprisingly nice?" "Surprisingly?" "I've known you for 5 years, Jack. You were always Melissa's husband. Sweet, funny Melissa's husband who was good at fixing computers and making her laugh. I never really thought about you as just you. And now?" She stopped walking and turned to face me. "Now I'm wondering why it took me so long to see what was right in front of me." The moment stretched between us, full of possibility and danger, and the kind of electricity I hadn't felt in years. I could kiss her, I realized. She wanted me to kiss her. And God help me, I wanted to kiss her too. Instead, I opened her car door. "Emily," I said as she got in, "what happens now?" "I don't know," she said, "but I know I want to find out." I drove home in a daze, my mind racing. What had started as an impulse born of hurt and anger had turned into something else entirely. I liked Emily, really liked her, and unless I was completely misreading the situation, she liked me too. The house was dark when I pulled into the driveway. Melissa's car wasn't there, which meant she was still out with Trevor. It was almost midnight. I sat in my car for a moment, looking at the house Melissa and I had bought together, thinking about the life we'd built and how quickly it was all falling apart. Then I thought about Emily's laugh, the way she'd looked at me across the dinner table, the way she'd said she wanted to find out what happened next. Maybe some things falling apart was exactly what needed to happen. I was almost to the front door when my phone buzzed with a text message from Melissa. "Where are you? Your car is gone." I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back, "Out. Don't wait up." It felt like the perfect response. Let her wonder for once. Let her be the one sitting at home, checking the clock, making up stories about where I might be and who I might be with. Let her see how it felt to be on the other side of that smirk. I woke up the next morning to the sound of the front door slamming. Melissa was home. I could hear her heels clicking across the hardwood floor downstairs, the sound sharp and angry. Cabinet doors banged in the kitchen. The coffee maker beeped aggressively. She was making noise on purpose, wanting me to know she was upset. Good. Let her be upset. I took my time getting up, showering, getting dressed for work. I had a client meeting at 10 and needed to review the security protocols I'd been working on. Normal life continuing despite the fact that my marriage had imploded in the span of 12 hours. When I finally made it downstairs, Melissa was sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee, still wearing the black dress from the night before. Her makeup was smeared, her hair was a mess, and she looked like she'd been crying. "We need to talk," she said without looking up. "Do we?" I poured myself coffee and leaned against the counter. "I thought we talked plenty last night. Where were you?" The question came out sharp and accusatory. "Out." "Out where?" I took a sip of coffee and studied her face. She looked terrible, which was unusual for Melissa. Even on her worst days, she usually managed to look put together. This morning, she looked wrecked. "How was your date with Trevor?" I asked instead of answering. Something flickered across her face. Embarrassment, maybe, or anger. "It wasn't a date." "No? What was it then?" We talked. About old times. About what went wrong between us." "And what conclusion did you reach?" She looked up at me then, and I could see the uncertainty in her eyes. Whatever had happened with Trevor, it hadn't gone the way she'd planned. "Jack, I think I made a mistake." "Which mistake would that be? Going out with your ex-boyfriend or telling me about it the way you did?" "Both. Neither. I don't know." She put her head in her hands. "I'm confused." "About what?" "About everything. About us. About what I want. About whether I'm throwing away something good for something that might not even exist anymore." I set down my coffee cup. "Melissa, what happened last night?" "Trevor and I went to dinner, and then we went back to his place." My stomach clenched, but she continued. "And we talked. Really talked. About why we broke up, about what we'd both been doing for the past 8 years, about whether we still had feelings for each other." "And?" "And I realized that I've been romanticizing something that ended for good reasons. Trevor is the same person he always was. Charming and successful and completely self-centered. He spent 2 hours talking about his restaurant and his new car and his condo, and when I tried to tell him about my life, about us, about how I've been feeling, he wasn't interested." I felt a petty surge of satisfaction. "So your grand reunion didn't go as planned?" "No, it didn't." She looked up at me, tears in her eyes. "Jack, I think I've been an idiot. I think I've been so focused on what I thought I was missing that I forgot what I actually have." "What you had," I corrected. Past tense." "What do you mean?" "I mean, you can't blow up a marriage on Tuesday night and then try to put it back together on Wednesday morning because your backup plan didn't work out. That's not what this is. Isn't it?" I grabbed my laptop bag and car keys. "Melissa, you told me last night that you'd been talking to your ex-boyfriend and that you'd both realized you made a mistake letting each other go. You got dressed up like you were going to seduce him, and you walked out that door with a smile on your face. You wanted to hurt me." "I was confused." "You were cruel." The words came out harder than I'd intended, but I didn't take them back. "You were deliberately cruel, and now that it didn't work out the way you wanted, you're sitting here in yesterday's dress, crying and expecting me to make you feel better about it. So what are you saying?" I looked at her, really looked at her, and realized that I didn't feel the way I'd expected to feel. I wasn't devastated or desperate to fix things. I was angry, yes, but more than that, I was done. "I'm saying I went out last night, too." Her face went white. "What?" "I went out, on a date, with someone who was actually happy to spend time with me." "With who? Does it matter?" She stood up so fast her chair fell over backward. "Of course it matters. You're my husband. And you're my wife. But that didn't stop you from going out with Trevor." "That was different." "How?" I was getting angry now, really angry. "How was it different, Melissa? Because from where I'm standing, it looks exactly the same. Because I didn't sleep with him. Neither did I. But I thought about it. It was a lie, but I wanted to see how it felt to throw something in her face for once. I thought about it a lot. The look on her face was worth every bit of guilt I felt about lying. She looked shocked and hurt and betrayed, which was exactly how I'd felt the night before. Who was it? She asked again. Someone who thinks I'm worth spending time with. Someone who listens when I talk and laughs at my jokes and doesn't make me feel like I'm boring her just by existing. Jack, please. Can we try to work this out? Can we go to counseling or something? Now you want counseling? After you've already decided our marriage isn't working and gone shopping for a replacement? It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that. I headed for the door. I have to go to work. We can talk more tonight, but Melissa, I need you to understand something. You don't get to blow up our marriage and then put it back together when your plan doesn't work out. That's not how this works. So what does work? What do you want me to do? I paused in the doorway. I want you to figure out what you actually want. Not what you think you're missing, not what looks exciting from a distance, but what you actually want. And I want you to be honest about it, even if it hurts. What if what I want is to fix this? Then you're going to have to prove it, because right now I don't believe you. I left her standing in the kitchen and drove to work, my hands shaking slightly on the steering wheel. I'd never talked to Melissa like that before, direct and uncompromising and unwilling to smooth things over for the sake of keeping the peace. It felt terrifying and liberating at the same time. My client meeting went well. I spent 3 hours walking through security protocols and explaining system vulnerabilities. And for those 3 hours, I didn't think about Melissa or Trevor or Emily or the mess my personal life had become. I just focused on the work, on solving problems and building solutions. It was a relief. Around noon, my phone buzzed with a text from Emily. "How are you doing today?" I stared at the message for a moment, then typed back, "Better than expected. You?" "Same. Thank you for last night. I had a really good time." "Me too. Want to do it again sometime?" "Definitely." I put the phone away, smiling for the first time all day. Whatever happened with Melissa, whatever we decided about our marriage, I was glad I'd called Emily. I was glad I'd taken that leap. For the first time in months, I felt like I was moving forward instead of just standing still, waiting for something to change. The question now was whether Melissa was ready to move forward too, or if she was going to keep looking backward at all the things she thought she'd missed. Either way, I realized I was going to be okay. That was a revelation worth having. 3 days later, I was debugging a client's firewall when my phone rang. The caller ID said Mike Torres, my best friend since college, the guy who'd been best man at my wedding, the one person I'd been avoiding since this whole mess started. "Hey, Mike." "Jack, what the hell is going on?" I leaned back in my desk chair. "That's a loaded question. Can you be more specific?" "I'm talking about the fact that half our friend group is calling me asking if you and Melissa are getting divorced, and the other half is asking if it's true that you're dating Emily Chen." Emily Chen. I'd forgotten that Mike knew her last name. They'd met at a few group gatherings over the years, back when Melissa and I still did couple things with other couples. "Where are you hearing all this?" "From everyone, man. Lisa saw you and Emily at Romano's Tuesday night. Tom heard from his wife that Melissa was out with some guy. Jenny called me this morning asking if she should take sides." Mike's voice was getting more agitated. "So I'm asking you directly. What's going on?" I told him. Everything. The fight with Melissa, her date with Trevor, my date with Emily, the conversation Wednesday morning. Mike listened without interrupting, which was unusual for him. "Jesus," he said when I finished. "So you're really doing this? You're really blowing up your marriage?" "I'm not blowing up anything. Melissa did that when she decided to reconnect with her ex-boyfriend. Come on, Jack. People go through rough patches. That doesn't mean you throw away 8 years of marriage." "It's not about the rough patch, Mike. It's about the way she handled it. She could have talked to me, suggested counseling, been honest about what she was feeling. Instead, she snuck around behind my back and then threw it in my face like she wanted to hurt me." "So, you decided to hurt her back by dating her best friend?" The accusation stung because there was some truth to it. "It started that way," I admitted, "but it's not about that anymore." "What's it about then?" "It's about the fact that I had a better conversation with Emily in 3 hours than I've had with my wife in 3 months. It's about the fact that someone actually seems interested in what I have to say. It's about remembering what it feels like to be with someone who's happy to see me." Mike was quiet for a moment. "Okay, I get that. But Jack, you're talking about Emily like she's some innocent bystander in all this. She's Melissa's best friend. She knows exactly what she's doing. What's that supposed to mean? It means she's not just some random woman you met. She's been watching your marriage for years. She knows all of Melissa's complaints about you, all of your weaknesses, all the things that would make you vulnerable. And now, right when your marriage is falling apart, she's suddenly available and interested? That doesn't seem convenient to you? The suggestion made my stomach clench. You think she's manipulating me? I think she's a single woman in her 30s who's been watching her best friend's husband for years, and now she sees an opportunity. I'm not saying she's evil, Jack, but I'm saying her motives might not be as pure as you think they are. I wanted to argue, to defend Emily, to tell Mike he was wrong, but the doubt was already creeping in. Had Emily been too eager to go out with me, too quick to say yes when I called, too ready with all the right things to say? Look, Mike continued, I'm not telling you to stay with Melissa if you're really unhappy, but maybe slow down a little. Maybe figure out what you actually want before you jump into something else. What if what I want is Emily? Then she'll still be there in a few months after you've had time to think clearly. But Jack, if you're wrong about this, if you're just rebounding and you blow up 2 friendships and your marriage for something that isn't real, you're going to regret it for the rest of your life. After I hung up, I sat staring at my computer screen, not seeing the code in front of me. Was Mike right? Was I being naive about Emily's motives? Was I so starved for attention and affection that I was reading more into her interest than was actually there? My phone buzzed with a text from Emily. Want to grab lunch today? I stared at the message, Mike's words echoing in my head. Then I typed back, can't today. Rain check? Of course. Everything okay? Yeah, just busy with work. It wasn't entirely a lie. I was busy. But more than that, I needed space to think, to figure out what was real and what was just wishful thinking. That evening, I got home to find Melissa's car in the driveway and 2 other cars I recognized, Mike's Honda and Jenny Patterson's SUV. Jenny was part of our friend group, married to Tom, someone we'd known since college. I walked into the house to find what looked like an intervention in progress. Melissa, Mike, Jenny, and Tom were all sitting in my living room with serious expressions on their faces. Jack, Melissa said, standing up, we need to talk. All of us. I looked around the room. This seems like overkill. Sit down, man, Mike said. Please. I remained standing. What's this about? It's about the fact that you're making decisions that affect all of us, Jenny said. Our friend group, our relationships, everything we've built together over the years. I'm making decisions that affect my marriage. That's between Melissa and me. Is it? Tom spoke up. Because now we're all having to choose sides. Jenny doesn't know whether she can be friends with both you and Melissa if you get divorced. Mike feels like he's caught in the middle. And Emily? What about Emily? Emily's been calling people, Melissa said quietly. Telling her side of the story, making it sound like I'm some kind of villain and you're the victim. Aren't you? The words came out harsher than I'd intended. You're the one who went out with your ex-boyfriend. And you're the one who immediately started dating my best friend. After you told me you were getting back together with Trevor. I never said I was getting back together with him. You said you'd both realized you made a mistake letting each other go. What was I supposed to think? The room erupted in overlapping voices. Everyone talking at once, taking sides, rehashing old grievances. This was exactly what I'd been trying to avoid, the reason I'd kept my problems with Melissa private for so long. Stop, I said loudly. Everyone just stop. The room went quiet. This is exactly why I didn't want to involve anyone else in this, because now it's not about Melissa and me anymore. It's about the group, about who's right and who's wrong, about choosing sides. I looked around the room at people I'd considered friends for years. But here's the thing. You don't get to vote on my marriage. You don't get to decide what I should or shouldn't do based on what's most convenient for everyone else. We're just trying to help, Jenny said. Are you? Or are you trying to preserve the status quo because it's easier than dealing with change? Jack, Mike said, we're worried about you. You're making big decisions when you're emotional and hurt. That's not usually the best time to make life-changing choices. When is the best time? When my wife has moved in with her ex-boyfriend. When I'm so lonely and miserable that I can't remember what it feels like to be happy. That's not what we want, Melissa said. Jack, I've been thinking about what you said, about proving that I want to fix this. I'm willing to go to counseling. I'm willing to do whatever it takes. Whatever it takes, except be honest about what actually happened with Trevor. I told you what happened. You told me what you wanted me to believe happened, but you didn't tell me how long you'd been talking to him, or what you talked about, or why you decided to meet him for dinner instead of talking to me about whatever problems you were having. Melissa looked around the room, then back at me. We'd been texting for about 2 weeks, just casual stuff at first, then more personal. He asked about you, about our marriage, and I told him we were going through a rough patch. He said he'd always regretted the way things ended between us, and I said I sometimes wondered what would have happened if we'd tried harder to make it work. And then he asked me to dinner, to talk, to see if there was still something there. She was crying now. I said yes because I was curious, and because I was feeling taken for granted, and because I wanted to know if the grass was really greener somewhere else. And what did you find out? That it's not. That Trevor is the same selfish person he always was, and that I was romanticizing something that ended for good reasons. She wiped her eyes. But by then, I'd already hurt you, and you'd already called Emily, and everything was such a mess. I looked around the room at my friends, people I'd known for years, people who'd been at my wedding, people I'd shared holidays and birthdays and major life events with. They all looked uncomfortable and worried, and like they wanted this conversation to be over. Here's what's going to happen, I said finally. Melissa and I are going to figure out our marriage ourselves, without a committee. If we decide to try counseling, we'll try counseling. If we decide to get divorced, we'll get divorced. But we're going to make that decision based on what's best for us, not what's most convenient for everyone else. What about Emily? Jenny asked. What about her? Are you going to keep seeing her while you're trying to work things out with Melissa? I looked at Melissa. Do you want me to stop seeing her? Yes. Then you need to stop talking to Trevor, permanently. Block his number, unfriend him on social media, whatever it takes to make sure there's no contact. Okay? And you need to be completely honest with me about what you want. Not what you think I want to hear, not what sounds good in front of our friends, but what you actually want. I want to save our marriage. Why? The question seemed to catch her off guard. Because I love you. Do you? Or do you love the idea of being married? The security of having someone who won't leave no matter how badly you treat them? That's not fair. It's a fair question, Melissa. Because if you're only here because Trevor didn't work out, if you're only trying to save this because your backup plan fell through, then we're wasting our time. She looked around the room again, then back at me. I don't know how to answer that in a way that you'll believe. Try being honest, really honest, even if it makes you look bad. She was quiet for a long moment. Okay, honest, I have been taking you for granted. I have been feeling trapped and wondering what I was missing. And when Trevor contacted me, part of me was excited because it felt like proof that I was still desirable, that I still had options. She took a shaky breath. But I also realized when I was sitting in that restaurant with him that I didn't want him. I wanted the feeling he represented, the excitement, the newness, the sense that someone found me fascinating. But I didn't want him specifically. So what do you want? I want to feel that way with you again. I want us to be excited about each other again. I want to remember why we fell in love in the first place. It was the most honest thing she'd said to me in months, maybe years. Okay, I said. We can try. The room let out a collective sigh of relief. But, I continued, I'm not calling Emily to break up with her in front of an audience. That conversation happens privately, when and how I decide, and if we're going to try to work on our marriage, we're doing it in counseling, with a professional, not with a committee of friends who have their own agenda. That's fair, Melissa said. I looked around the room one more time. And I need all of you to understand something. If Melissa and I can't work this out, if we end up getting divorced, I expect you to be adults about it. I'm not going to disappear from the friend group just because our marriage didn't work out. Of course not, Jenny said quickly. Good. Then I think this intervention is over. After everyone left, Melissa and I sat in the living room, not talking, both of us processing what had just happened. Jack, she said finally. Yeah? I really am sorry, for all of it. For the way I handled things, for hurting you, for putting our friends in the middle of it. I know. Do you think we can really fix this? I looked at her, really looked at her, and tried to imagine us 5 years from now, 10 years from now. Tried to imagine trusting her completely again, feeling excited to come home to her, believing that she was as committed to our marriage as I was. I don't know, I said honestly, but I think we owe it to ourselves to try. It wasn't the romantic reconciliation that our friends probably expected, but it was real, and after everything we'd been through, real was a good place to start. The question now was whether real would be enough. 2 weeks into marriage counseling, I realized that Melissa and I had fundamentally different definitions of trying to save our marriage. To me, it meant being completely honest about our problems, doing the work to rebuild trust, and making real changes in how we communicated and treated each other. To Melissa, it apparently meant going through the motions until enough time had passed that she could claim we'd tried everything before moving on to whatever she actually wanted to do. Our counselor, Dr. Patricia Williams, was a no-nonsense woman in her 50s who had a gift for cutting through bullshit. She'd been asking us hard questions for 2 weeks, and while I'd been answering them honestly, Melissa had been giving carefully crafted responses that sounded good, but didn't really say anything. Melissa, Dr. Williams said during our third session, last week you said you wanted to rebuild intimacy in your marriage. What specific steps have you taken toward that goal? Melissa shifted in her chair. Well, I've been trying to be more present when Jack and I spend time together, less distracted by my phone, more focused on our conversations. And how has that felt, Jack? I looked at Melissa, then back at Dr. Williams. I haven't noticed a difference. Can you be more specific? She's still on her phone constantly. She still goes out with friends multiple times a week. She still works late most nights. If she's trying to be more present, I'm not seeing evidence of it. Melissa, how do you respond to that? I think Jack's expectations are unrealistic. I can't just completely change my entire lifestyle overnight. I need to maintain my friendships and my career. No one's asking you to give up your friends or your career, I said, but you could maybe spend one evening a week at home with your husband. You could maybe put your phone down during dinner. You could maybe act like being married to me is something you actually want to do. I do want to be married to you? Do you? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you want the security of being married while still living like you're single. Dr. Williams held up a hand. Let's pause here. Melissa, I want you to think about Jack's observation. Can you see how your actions might be sending a message that's different from what you're saying in this room? I guess, but no but. Just sit with that for a moment. Dr. Williams turned to me. Jack, I want to ask you about Emily. My stomach clenched. What about her? You agreed to stop seeing her while you work on your marriage. How has that been for you? Hard. It was the truth. I'd called Emily the day after our friend intervention and explained that Melissa and I were going to try counseling. She'd been understanding, but I could hear the disappointment in her voice. I miss talking to her. What do you miss specifically? She listens. She asks questions about my work, remembers things I've told her, seems genuinely interested in what I have to say. She makes me feel like I'm worth spending time with. And you don't feel that way with Melissa? I looked at my wife, who was staring at her hands. Not lately, no. Melissa, how does it make you feel to hear Jack say that? It makes me feel like I can't do anything right, like no matter what I do, he's going to compare me to Emily and find me lacking. Is that what you're doing, Jack? Maybe. I thought about it. But not intentionally. It's just hard not to notice the contrast. What contrast? Emily was excited to spend time with me. Melissa acts like spending time with me is a chore she has to fit into her schedule. Emily laughed at my jokes and asked about my day and seemed to actually enjoy my company. Melissa barely looks up from her phone when I'm talking. Those are pretty specific observations. Melissa, how accurate do you think Jack's assessment is? Melissa was quiet for a long moment. I don't know. Maybe more accurate than I want to admit. Can you elaborate on that? I think I've been so focused on what I thought I was missing that I stopped appreciating what I had. And by the time I realized that, Jack had found someone who did appreciate him, and I felt like I was competing with that. How did that feel? Terrible. Like I'd lost something I didn't even know I valued until it was gone. It was the most honest thing she'd said since we'd started counseling. Jack, Dr. Williams said, how do you respond to that? I want to believe it, but I need to see changes, not just hear about them. I need to feel like Melissa actually wants to be married to me, not like she's just trying to win a competition with Emily. What would those changes look like? I don't know. Spending time together without her phone, having conversations about something other than her work drama or friend drama, acting like she's happy to see me when I come home instead of like I'm interrupting something more important. Those seem like reasonable requests. Melissa, how do you feel about making those changes? I can try. Trying isn't the same as doing, I said. I've been hearing I can try for 2 weeks now, and nothing has actually changed. What do you want me to say, Jack? That I can completely transform overnight? That I can undo months of bad habits in 2 weeks? I want you to say that you understand why I'm frustrated, and that you're going to make specific, concrete changes starting today. Not try to make changes, not think about making changes, but actually make them. Like what? Like coming home for dinner tonight instead of working late. Like putting your phone in another room while we eat. Like asking me about my day and actually listening to the answer. Okay. Okay, you'll try, or okay, you'll do it. Okay, I'll do it. But she didn't. That night she texted me at 5:30 to say she had to work late. When she finally got home at 9, she spent the entire evening on her phone, texting with friends about weekend plans that apparently didn't include me. I didn't say anything, I just watched her, and I realized that Dr. Williams had been right to push us on specifics. When it came down to actually changing her behavior, Melissa either couldn't or wouldn't do it. The next morning I called Emily. Jack, hi, how are things going? Not great. Can we talk? Of course. Do you want to meet for coffee? Actually, can you come over? Melissa's at work, and I think we need to have this conversation privately. Emily arrived an hour later, looking concerned. What's going on? I told her about the counseling sessions, about Melissa's promises to change and her failure to follow through, about my growing realization that my wife was going through the motions but wasn't actually committed to saving our marriage. So what are you going to do? Emily asked. I don't know. Part of me thinks I should give it more time, keep trying, not give up too easily, but part of me thinks I'm just prolonging the inevitable. What does your gut tell you? My gut tells me that Melissa doesn't really want to be married to me. She wants to be married, and she wants the security and stability that comes with it, but she doesn't want to be married to me specifically. She wants to be married to some idealized version of me that doesn't actually exist. And what do you want? I want to be with someone who's excited about being with me, someone who chooses me every day, not someone who stays with me because it's easier than leaving. Emily was quiet for a moment. Jack, can I tell you something? Of course. I've been watching you and Melissa for years, and I've watched her take you for granted, dismiss your interests, roll her eyes when you talk, act like you're lucky to have her instead of the other way around. It's been hard to watch because you're a good man, and you deserve better than that. Why didn't you ever say anything? Because she's my friend, and you were married, and it wasn't my place. But Jack, when you called me that night and asked me out, I said yes immediately because I'd been hoping for years that you'd realize you deserved better. So Mike was right? You have been waiting for an opportunity? Emily's face flushed. Not the way he made it sound. I wasn't plotting to break up your marriage. But yes, I've had feelings for you for a long time. And yes, I was glad when you finally seemed to notice that I existed as more than just Melissa's friend. How long? How long have I had feelings for you? She looked embarrassed. About 3 years. Since that 4th of July barbecue when you spent an hour talking to me about the book I was reading while Melissa was inside, complaining to everyone about how boring you were. The memory hit me like a physical blow. I remembered that conversation, remembered thinking how nice it was to talk to someone who was genuinely interested in ideas and books and things that mattered. I also remembered going inside afterward to find Melissa holding court in the kitchen, making jokes about my nerdy obsessions while our friends laughed. She was complaining about me being boring? She does that a lot, Jack. Makes jokes about your work, your hobbies, your interests, always with a smile, always like she's just teasing, but it's not teasing, it's mean. Why didn't you tell me? Because I didn't think you'd believe me, and because I thought maybe it was just her way of dealing with stress, or maybe I was reading too much into it because of how I felt about you. I sat back on the couch, processing this information. My wife had been publicly mocking me for years, and I'd been too oblivious or too trusting to notice. Jack, Emily said softly, you don't have to stay in a marriage that makes you unhappy just because it's easier than leaving. You don't have to keep trying to save something that the other person isn't actually invested in saving. But what if I'm wrong? What if she really does want to change, and I'm just not giving her enough time? Then she'll prove it. But Jack, it's been 2 weeks since she promised to make changes, and she hasn't made any. How much more time do you think you should give her? I didn't have an answer for that. That evening, Melissa came home at her usual time, after 8, and immediately started telling me about her day while scrolling through her phone. She didn't ask about my day, didn't notice that I was quieter than usual, didn't seem to register that I was watching her with new eyes. Oh, she said, looking up from her phone, I'm going out with Jenny and Lisa tomorrow night. Girls' night. You don't mind, do you? Actually, I do mind. She looked surprised. Why? Because we're supposed to be working on our marriage. Because you promised Dr. Williams you'd make an effort to spend more time together. Because you've been out 3 nights this week already. It's just one night, Jack. It's never just one night. It's always something. Work, friends, errands, whatever. There's always a reason why spending time with me isn't a priority. That's not fair. Isn't it? When was the last time you chose to spend an evening at home with me? When was the last time you suggested we do something together? She opened her mouth to answer, then closed it. I don't remember. Neither do I, and that's the problem. So what do you want me to do? Cancel my plans? Stop seeing my friends? Become some kind of hermit who never leaves the house? I want you to want to spend time with me. I want you to choose me sometimes instead of always choosing something else. I do choose you. When? When do you choose me, Melissa? Give me one example from the last month. She stared at me, and I could see her trying to come up with an answer. The fact that she had to think about it told me everything I needed to know. I'm here, aren't I? She said finally. Physically, yes, but that's not the same thing. We stared at each other across the living room, and I realized that this was it. This was the moment when we both acknowledged what we'd been dancing around for weeks. Jack, she said quietly, I don't think I know how to be the wife you want me to be. And I don't think you want to learn. Maybe I don't. The admission seemed to surprise her as much as it surprised me. Maybe I like my life the way it is. Maybe I don't want to change. Then we don't have anything else to talk about. Are you saying you want a divorce? I looked at her, really looked at her, and tried to find some trace of the woman I'd fallen in love with 8 years ago. She was still beautiful, still charming when she wanted to be, still capable of making me laugh when she put in the effort. But she didn't want to put in the effort. That was the bottom line. She wanted to be married, but she didn't want to do the work that marriage required. Yeah, I said. I think I am. She nodded slowly. Okay. Okay? I mean, I'm sad about it. But I'm not surprised. And honestly, I think you're right. I think we both deserve to be with someone who makes us happy. It wasn't the fight I'd expected. It wasn't tears or accusations or desperate attempts to change my mind. It was just two people acknowledging that they had grown apart and couldn't find their way back to each other. So what happens now? She asked. Now we figure out the practical stuff. The house, the finances, all of that. And Emily? What about her? Are you going to be with her? I don't know. Maybe. If she'll have me. Melissa smiled, and for the first time in months, it wasn't a smirk. It was just a sad, genuine smile. She will, she said. She's been waiting for you for years. How did you know that? Because I'm not blind, Jack. I saw the way she looked at you, the way she lit up when you talked to her, the way she always found excuses to spend time with us when you were around. She paused. I used to be jealous of it, actually. The way she looked at you like you were the most interesting person in the room. Why didn't you ever look at me like that? I did once, but I guess I forgot how. It was the saddest and most honest thing she'd ever said to me. I'm sorry, Melissa. I'm sorry we couldn't make this work. Me too, but Jack, I'm glad you're going to be happy. You deserve that. And just like that, our marriage was over. 6 months later, I was sitting in Emily's apartment, helping her grade papers from her nursing students, when my phone rang. The caller ID said Melissa. Should I answer it? I asked Emily. It's your phone, she said, but I could see the curiosity in her eyes. Jack, hi, do you have a minute? Sure, what's up? I wanted to tell you something before you heard it from someone else. I'm engaged. I felt Emily look up from her papers, but I kept my expression neutral. Congratulations. Anyone I know? Actually, yes. Remember David from my work? The guy who started around the same time I did? I did remember him. Tall, good-looking, ambitious. The kind of guy who wore expensive suits and drove a luxury car. Yeah, I remember David. We've been dating for about 3 months now. He proposed last weekend. 3 months, which meant she'd started dating him almost immediately after our divorce was finalized. That's fast, I said. I know how it sounds. But Jack, when you know, and David and I we click. We want the same things, we have the same goals, we make each other happy. I'm glad, I said, and I was surprised to realize I meant it. I really am glad you found someone who makes you happy. Thank you, that means a lot. She paused. How are you doing? How are things with Emily? I looked over at Emily, who was pretending to focus on her grading, but was obviously listening to every word. Good, I said. Really good, actually. I'm glad. You deserve to be happy, too. After I hung up, Emily set down her pen and looked at me. How do you feel about that? Honestly, relieved. Relieved? Yeah, it confirms that we made the right decision. If Melissa can fall in love and get engaged to someone else in 3 months, then she was never really committed to saving our marriage. She was just going through the motions until she found something better. And how do you feel about that? I thought about it. I feel like I dodged a bullet. If we'd stayed together, if we'd somehow managed to work through our problems, I would have spent the rest of my life with someone who was always looking for something better. Someone who would have left the moment a more attractive option came along. Emily nodded. David's a good match for her, actually. He's as ambitious and image-conscious as she is. They'll probably be very happy together. You don't sound entirely convinced. I hope they'll be happy. But Jack, Melissa has a pattern. She gets bored, she starts looking around, she finds someone new and exciting, and then she burns everything down to be with them. She did it to Trevor when she met you. She did it to you when she reconnected with Trevor, and now she's doing it again with David. You think she'll cheat on him too? I think she'll do whatever she needs to do to keep herself entertained. And if that means blowing up another relationship somewhere down the line, then that's what she'll do. It was a harsh assessment, but probably accurate. Melissa was someone who needed constant excitement, constant validation, constant proof that she was desirable and had options. That wasn't necessarily a character flaw, but it did make her a bad bet for long-term commitment. Well, I said, that's David's problem now, not mine. Exactly. Emily moved over to sit next to me on the couch. Speaking of long-term commitment, yeah? I love you. The words hung in the air between us. We'd been dating for 6 months, living together for 2, but neither of us had said those words yet. I think we'd both been afraid of moving too fast, of repeating the mistakes that had led to the failure of my marriage. I love you too, I said, and I meant it completely. Good, she smiled, because I was starting to think you were never going to say it. I was waiting for the right moment, and hearing about your ex-wife's engagement was the right moment. It was the moment I realized that I'm completely over my old life and completely committed to my new one. She kissed me, and I thought about how different this felt from my relationship with Melissa. With Melissa, everything had been about proving something, proving I was worthy of her attention, proving our relationship was working, proving we were happy even when we weren't. With Emily, I didn't have to prove anything. I could just be myself, and that was enough, more than enough. So what happens now? She asked. Now we keep doing what we're doing. We keep building something real together. No dramatic gestures, no grand romantic declarations. I think we've both had enough drama for one lifetime, she laughed. Speak for yourself. I'm still waiting for you to serenade me outside my window. I don't sing. Then write me a poem. I don't write poetry either. Then debug my computer and tell me it's romantic. Now that I can do. We spent the rest of the evening grading papers and watching bad reality TV, and it was perfect. Not perfect in a movie romance way, but perfect in a real-life way. Comfortable and easy and sustainable. Later, as we were getting ready for bed, Emily said, Jack, can I ask you something? Of course. Do you ever regret it? The way things ended with Melissa, the timing of when we got together, any of it? I thought about it seriously. No. I regret that it took me so long to realize what I actually wanted, and I regret that people got hurt along the way. But I don't regret ending up here with you. Even though some people think we're the bad guys, even though some of our friends still think you should have tried harder to save your marriage, especially because of that. I turned to face her. Emily, I spent 8 years trying to save a marriage to someone who didn't actually want to be married to me. I could have spent 8 more years doing the same thing, and it wouldn't have changed anything. Melissa would still have been looking for something else, and I would still have been trying to convince myself that being tolerated was the same as being loved. And now? Now I'm with someone who actually wants to be with me, someone who chooses me every day, not because it's convenient or safe or expected, but because she genuinely likes spending time with me. I do like spending time with you. I know, and that makes all the difference. The next morning, I woke up before Emily and lay in bed watching her sleep, thinking about how much my life had changed in the past year. 12 months ago, I'd been married to someone who took me for granted, surrounded by friends who prioritized keeping the peace over doing what was right, stuck in patterns that made everyone comfortable, but no one happy. Now I was with someone who loved me for exactly who I was, who supported my dreams and shared my values and made me want to be the best version of myself. I had a smaller circle of friends, but they were people who had stood by me during the hardest time in my life. I had a clearer sense of what I wanted and what I was willing to accept. I had learned the difference between settling and choosing, between being comfortable and being happy, between being married and being loved. It had been a hard year, full of difficult conversations and painful realizations and choices that hurt people I cared about, but it had also been the year I learned to stop apologizing for wanting more from my life. Emily stirred next to me and opened her eyes. Good morning. Good morning. What are you thinking about? Just this, us, how lucky I am. We're both lucky. Yeah, we are. She stretched and rolled over to face me. So what's the plan for today? I was thinking we could stay in bed for a while, then maybe go for a walk, then come back and make dinner together. Sounds perfect. Really? You don't want to do something more exciting? Go out with friends, try a new restaurant, have some kind of adventure? She looked at me like I was crazy. Jack, I get to spend the whole day with you, doing whatever we want, with no obligations or distractions. That is an adventure. And that, I realized, was the difference between settling for someone and choosing someone. When you're with the right person, ordinary moments feel extraordinary. When you're with the wrong person, even extraordinary moments feel ordinary. I had spent 8 years with the wrong person, and now I was with the right one. It had taken me longer than it should have to figure that out, but I'd gotten there eventually. And that was what mattered.